Baseball is back tomorrow, so we're going to make our predictions for the upcoming season. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Wednesday, March 27th, 2024. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On. That's LOCKDON for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. And today, we're going to step away from just the Mariners and make our predictions for the 2024 MLB season as a whole. And we're going to start with our division winners across both the American and National Leagues. And we're going to start in the American League West. Colby, are the Mariners going to win the West?
I will say this. I think it is a two-team race. No disrespect to the defending World Series champion Texas Rangers, but that's a team with some questions that they did not answer. Their rotation is objectively worse than it was a year ago. They didn't bring back Jordan Montgomery. They didn't replace him. And now they're not going to have, Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, or Tyler Mahle for most of this year. And so it's just a lot of question marks in that rotation. It's John Gray, who's hit or miss. It's Nathan Eovaldi, who has his own injury issues, his own injury concerns, but he's also kind of hit or miss. It's Andrew Heaney, hit or miss. That bullpen didn't get much better, if at all. So you're kind of relying on this offense that was historically good with runners in scoring position for most of last year to repeat that. I'm not saying it's not possible because it's a really good lineup. Don't get me wrong. It's a great lineup, but it's just not likely. So can they pitch enough to kind of hang with arguably the two best pitching staffs in the American League? I don't know. I'm not sure. So to me, there's a clear divide between Texas and Seattle and Houston. I think there's a clear step down between the top two teams in Texas. That doesn't mean Texas can't compete for the division. It doesn't mean that they can't make the playoffs. It doesn't mean they can't do damage. It just means to me that when I look at the roster and how things sit, I'm not too sure Texas is in the same league as Seattle and Houston, at least what they could be. So to me, I'm not considering Texas as a division winner. If they win it, would I be shocked? A little bit, just because the pitching is so hit or miss, and we don't know what to expect from that. So it comes down to Seattle and Houston. Now, both of these teams have already had some issues to their pitching staff, health-wise, this spring. When you look at, what the Mariners are doing, though, it looks like, fingers crossed, they're going to have Wu, Brash, and Santos before, May, give or take. So they're coming back, at least we think. We'll see. Whereas Houston right now, Lance McCullers Jr. is going to miss most of this year. Verlander's going to start. Yeah, Verlander's going to start the year on the IL. Urquidy is going to, we still don't have an update on his elbow. So anytime an elbow injury takes this long for you to come up with some kind of, it's a forearm issue. That's typically leads to Tommy John. So maybe he can avoid that. But yeah, so you're starting the year with Framber, Christian Javier, and Hunter Brown. Luis Garcia is also hurt. So there's some questions there. Now they do have the good bullpen, but they lost a lot of depth out of that bullpen and they kind of just tried to replace it with one guy. So, Seattle, I think their lineup is balanced. I think it's deep. I think their starting pitching is the best in the league. I think their bullpen, if healthy, is just as good as Houston's, if not better. So it's a really tough matchup to me. I think I'll probably take Houston just because they've won it repeatedly. And until somebody unseats them, I think you kind of have to give them the benefit of the doubt. So I'll take Houston to win this division, but I think it's going to be really close. I think it's a game or two that separates Houston and Seattle. And I think Texas is probably still within, 4 or 5 games of the division lead. And we'll just kind of see, there are very real scenarios in which any of the 3 teams we talked about can win the American League West.
Right. You mentioned Luis Garcia, but he had Tommy John last year as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure It was back in May, so I'm sure he's gonna be able to return at some point this year, but you never know.
August.
So right now, according to Fangraphs roster resource, it's Framber, it's Christian Javier, it's Hunter Brown, it's Renell Blanco, who's had a pretty good spring, and then JP France. That's not really a rotation that strikes fear in me.
No, but it is the Astros.
It
So
is the Astros, and they still have Bregman, they still have Altuve, they still have Jordan, they still have Kyle Tucker. I'm picking
for
the
now.
Astros to win the division because I've learned not to doubt them, right? Until they actually give me a reason to. So I'm picking the Astros to win the division, but I have the Mariners finishing second because I agree with you on the Rangers. I think that offense still really, really good, but I think it's going to regress some. And then the injuries within that rotation and the bullpen didn't really get that much better this offseason. They added
If at
David
all.
Robertson. That's it. Now bullpens are finicky, and
Mhm.
that works both ways, right? That's not just in terms of the negative.
Texas
That
has a
also,
ring to prove it.
yeah, right. They were able to pitch pretty well over those, final 3 weeks or 4 weeks, in the postseason, right? So, um, can they carry that momentum into this regular season? Sure, they absolutely could, and this bullpen could be more than fine, and that rotation could be more than fine. But that said, I don't foresee that happening. I don't feel comfortable saying that that's going to happen. Just looking at their roster on paper right now. And also offensively speaking, they're gonna be missing Nathaniel Lowe to start the year. Just it looks like only for a couple of weeks with an oblique injury, but they're not gonna be at full strength offensively either. So yeah, I look at this division. I think it's wide open for the Mariners to take. I think the Mariners are right there on the cusp. But again, until the Astros give me a reason to think otherwise, I'm gonna go with the Astros because the Astros, they've been there, they've done that, they get it done more often than
Yeah.
not. So let's talk about the AL Central. I find this division really interesting because the Twins are still, in my mind, the best team in the division on paper, but they got worse this
Mhm.
offseason. They traded Jorge Polanco, they lost Sonny Gray to the Cardinals. They've added, guys like Carlos Santana to the fold. But do you think they're going to be able to repeat? Because I mean, the rest of this division not that great.
Yeah, I think they're probably still the favorite. I mean, this is a team that even without Sonny Gray can still pitch. They also lost Kenta Maeda. Don't forget about him. But they can still pitch. They have Joe Ryan. They have Bailey Ober, who I'm really high on this year. They have, they still have Duran out of the bullpen. They still have Brock Stewart out of the bullpen. Like team that can pitch. And you look at their lineup, it's still solid. Although again, without Polanco, not quite as good as last year. But I think they're still the favorite. I think the team that people are sleeping on is actually Cleveland, not Detroit. I know Detroit has a lot of buzz right now, and rightfully so. They are a very interesting team, and they can pitch as well. But Cleveland can pitch. They have a superstar hitter in Jose Ramirez. They have kind of an up and coming superstar hitter in Naylor, Josh Naylor, and then we'll see what they get from the rest of the boys. Bo Naylor, maybe he takes a step forward. Does Stephen Kwan return to his rookie year, or is he just kind of this, league average hitter? What about Jimenez? I always get Rosario and Jimenez mixed up. Jimenez had a 6-win season in 2022, and last year he was pretty,
Yeah.
So I do think that there's a shot here that Cleveland could make some noise, but I would take Minnesota. Um, but I do feel like this is a 3-team race between Minnesota, Detroit, and Cleveland. And I think they're all going to be right around 84, 85 wins. I don't think
Yeah.
there's a 90-win team in this division.
No, I think if you're going to win this division, it's only going to take, 85, 86 wins to do it.
Mm,
I'm actually going to go with the Detroit Tigers. This
mm,
team had a really good second half. Guys like Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson started to hit in that second half. They can really pitch too, and Casey Mize is having a good spring or had a good spring. Maybe he's finally figured it out. If he does, or if he has, you combine him with the return of Tariq Skubal, who I know is a
mhm.
Cy Young favorite for a lot of people.
Yep.
Kenta Maeda, who you mentioned earlier, he went to Detroit this
Mhm.
offseason. They made a pretty
Reese
sneaky
Olson.
addition. Yeah, they've made a pretty sneaky addition this offseason and getting Mark Canha, who you and I both like.
Mhm.
Um, that offense has the potential to be sneaky good.
Sure. A
Yeah.
lot of questions still.
Yeah, a lot of questions, but guys like Kerry Carpenter, I really like.
Mhm.
And maybe they can
Riley
get
Green.
something out of Javier Baez. I doubt it, but maybe they can get something out of Javi
I
Baez.
think that ship has sailed, but,
Yeah.
he's gonna be there for the next 4 years because nobody's trading for that salary.
And Colt
Um,
Keith, one of their top
yeah,
prospects, they gave him a deal. He's gonna make the opening day roster. Maybe he's something
mhm,
for them. I'm really intrigued by the Tigers, but they can definitely pitch. It's just, can they score enough runs? I think
yeah,
the answer is maybe, because again, I'm intrigued by quite a few of the hitters on that team right now.
yeah,
So I'm gonna go with them.
okay.
So let's talk about the NL East now, real quick, before we move on to the
NL or
national
AL?
or AL East. Sorry, before we move on to the NL. That's what I was trying to say.
Baltimore, move on.
Yeah, it's Baltimore. All right, so we're gonna get into the National League in just a moment, but first, a reminder: this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks. Football season may be over, but the action on the floor is heating up. Whether it's tournament season or the fight for playoff home court, there is no shortage of high stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get in on the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. The biggest moments in college basketball are here as the tournament is in full swing. Be a part of the action on PrizePicks for both men's and women's college basketball. And tonight in the pros, I'm taking Jalen Suggs more than 12.5 points against the Warriors and Grady Dick more than 12.5 points against the Knicks. Download the app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That is promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. And just a reminder, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. We are making our predictions for the 2024 MLB season on today's episode. We just picked our division winners for the American League. Now let's move on to the National League and pick our division winners. Let's go on to the NL West. I assume this is a pretty
Dodgers
easy.
next.
Yeah, this is a pretty easy decision. It's the Dodgers.
Spoiler alert, the East is just as easy.
Right. Yeah, it's the Braves. So we'll just answer that now. And let's just move on to the NL Central, where the answer is a lot more difficult because, like the AL Central, it's a lot of mid.
Mhm. I think you could write a pretty compelling script that any of the 5 teams can win this division. Now obviously a lot more has to go right for, say, Pittsburgh than it does for the Cubs. But I think you look at this division, there's a lot of young talent on teams like Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Cincinnati kind of, they were in it last year, and then, their inexperience kind of fell apart. But I worry about Cincinnati's pitching. I worry about just the depth of quality major leaguers that Pittsburgh has. With the Cubs, I don't know if they have enough top end talent to kind of, be a 90-win team. I think they have a lot of solid players. I don't know if they have a superstar in that mix. Milwaukee, I don't know how long they're going to stay in this thing and be true to it. Could they trade Willie Adames in May? Yeah, they could. And they traded Corbin Burns, but there's a lot of young talent there. So I kind of look around here at this division, and, St. Louis was bad last year, but that's a veteran squad that has a lot of really good players. They added a bunch of pitching. Now, Sonny Gray is going to start the year on the IL, and that obviously hurts quite a bit. So last year their problem was pitching, but they still have Arenado, they still have Goldschmidt, they still have Nootbaar, they still have Brendan Donovan. They have a lot of Nolan Gorman. They have Contreras. They have really good pieces there.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. This is probably going to come down to who pitches the best, and I think all these teams have pretty serious questions about their rotations. So. It's tough to say. I'm going to pick the Cubs. I don't feel good about it at all.
Yeah.
I really don't feel good about this. I'll pick the Cubs, but I think the Cardinals are probably a sleeper here. I think people are just ready to write them off. And it's the Cardinals have been good for 15 years, and they had one bad year, and people are just like, oh, well, they're toast now. There's a lot of talent on that team to just write them off entirely.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's why I'm picking the Cardinals. I
Yeah.
think that team has enough offense to
Mhm.
make up for some of the questions in their pitching staff. I think that bullpen has the potential to be pretty solid. And the rotation, if they can get Sonny back in there, I think they'll be fine and they can make an addition or two near the
Yep.
deadline. I think it's the best foundation to build off of, though I really like the foundation that the Cubs have as well. But I look at all these teams and they're all pretty incomplete to me. So I'm really intrigued to see how that kind of works out over the course of the year and which of these teams start to get
Right.
aggressive, on the trade market.
Right. I wanted to pick Cincinnati, but obviously they lose Noelvi for half the year, and now
Friedel.
McLean is going to be out months. Friedel's out as well. So like McLean, they won't even put a timeline on, and they're just saying they hope he returns this year. Now the Reds have a lot of young offensive talent in their system, but having to replace 3 projected starters at the last minute, uh, and with the questions they already have about their pitching, I don't know. I'm a big Hunter Green
Yeah.
fan. I think this
Mhm.
might be the year he breaks out, but Nick Lodolo is pretty good too. But I I want to pick them, but with just the injuries and what they've been hit with this
Yeah.
spring, I don't think they have it this year. I
Agreed.
hope I'm wrong though, because that is a fun team to watch.
Agreed. Yeah, they are a lot of fun. And if Ellie figures it out, he's actually
Hmm.
able to produce at an above average rate offensively. Because
Yep.
again, he was a big highlight guy last year, but he was an 84 WRC plus this past year. Like, let's
Yeah.
pump the brakes on the Ellie hype. But obviously a lot of talent there. He's an incredibly fun dude to watch for sure.
Fun dude to watch the highlight reel on. That's for sure.
Yep. Yep. All right, so let's get into the wild cards. American League wild cards. Who do you want to do them in order, or are you just going to throw 3 teams out there?
If you're expecting me to tell you who's going to play each other in the wild card round in the ALDS based on seeding, I'm not doing that. So
All right.
you will
Perfect.
get a CS prediction and a World Series prediction, and that's it.
Okay. All right.
The Mariners are going to take a wild card spot. I
Mhm.
think the AL
Agreed.
West is going to get 3 teams into the playoffs. So I think Texas wins the other one. Uh, I think the Central's only going to get one. You never know how this is going to play out, and I think that's obviously going to be the division winner. So I have Seattle, Texas, and then the East is tricky. Like a lot of people are really hyped on the Yankees. I see so many landmines on that roster, and they're already
Mhm.
going to be without Cole for a little while if they get him
Mhm.
back at all.
Yep.
I, I I'm not doing it. I don't trust the Yankees. There's just too many. Is Juan Soto and Aaron Judge the best 1-2 punch in baseball? I mean, if it's not them, it's what Acuna and Olsen, Freeman and Betts. Like it's up there. But what else is there on that team? I got to rely on a DJ LeMahieu bounce back. I got to
Yep.
rely on Alex Verdugo bounce back. I got to rely on Nestor Cortez Jr. Like
Yep.
Clark Schmidt. I just not doing it. So to me, that leaves Tampa and Toronto for one spot. Tampa's pitching is a mess right now. I don't know
Yep.
how they're going to fix that in season. This kind of feels like a year where maybe Tampa takes like a half step back to kind of reload themselves and come back strong in 2025. So I'm going to take Toronto to win that last wild card spot. I don't feel great about it, but it's still
Yeah.
Gossman. It's still Bichette. It's still, you know, it's still George Springer and Dalton Varsho.
Right. Yeah.
There are questions about that roster, no doubt. But I think they just have enough star power, and I think they have significantly more pitching than Tampa does right now. Now
Sure. Yeah.
Tampa pulls pitching out of
That's a
there
good point.
behind, like kind of like the Mariners do.
Right. Fair.
Uh, but I'm looking at that and I'm going like, where is it coming from this year?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't with
Yeah.
Rasmussen and McClanahan and now Taj Bradley and like it gets real ugly after I mean after what Pepio? Like who's the opening
Yeah.
day starter for Tampa this year? Do you know?
Eflin.
Okay, Eflin, Savale, and then
Eflin,
probably
Savale, Littell,
Pep,
and then
yeah, and Pepio.
Pepio.
Is he even healthy?
I don't even know who
He
their
might have
number
gotten hurt
5
last
is.
time since the last time we checked. Like the
Right.
Rays
Yeah.
pitching is a mess right now. So I'm
Yeah.
going to take Toronto to be the last wild card team. I don't feel great about it. It could be Tampa. I wouldn't be super shocked if it was the Yankees. It's just they have such a wide like degree of possibilities that I just don't want to. I don't want to take them. Like
Yeah.
I don't trust them to hit the good range that they could hit.
Yeah. There's like they're are 4 teams that I feel pretty good about in the American League. That's the Orioles, that's the Astros, that's the Mariners, and that's the Rangers.
Yep.
And then we have to pick a central winner, even though
Yep.
that division is incredibly mid. And after that, yeah, I just I don't know. Like
Watch
I'm
the
right,
AL Central. Watch the AL
right,
Central have 3 90-win teams this year.
right. Maybe. Like
Baseball's weird, man.
I'm gonna go with the Yankees. I don't feel great about it, but I'm gonna go with the Yankees. I don't know. I don't feel great about it. Again, I think there's like 4 good teams in the American League, and then a lot of question marks.
I'd say 4 really good rosters, and then like 3 or 4 like squint and you can see it, and then like 2 like, yeah,
Maybe.
maybe.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
feel like that's the American League this year.
It's National League wild cards.
Philly,
Okay. Yep. I'm with you there.
Arizona.
Wait, did I say
I
all of my American League wild card teams? I'm going Seattle, New York, Texas, if it wasn't clear.
oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll go Philly. I'll go Arizona,
Okay.
and then I
Yep.
think I'll go St. Louis as the third. I think each
Okay.
division gets 1 wild card. I
So
I
you and
would
I are
not.
on the same page. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
you have the Cubs winning the Central. I have the Cardinals winning the
Yeah,
Central. I have the Cubs as my wild card team.
sure.
So
I would watch the Nationals. They didn't do a ton, but there's a lot of good young talent on that team.
sure.
I would watch the Padres. I don't think they're great, but do I think they're good enough to, sneak in the back door of a wild card spot?
What about the
Sure. I mean,
Giants?
I think the Giants are just mid. I think they're trying so hard to put a bunch of band-aids on, parts of their club that need surgery.
Hmm.
So to me, the Giants look like a classic 83, 83 and 79 club that always just teases you with the possibility. And they stay in it long enough in July that their front office makes a questionable go for it trade. But this is a band-aid on a team that needs surgery. They need to rebuild that ball club, that franchise, and they're
Hmm.
just refusing to do it. So I don't buy them. I would I'm not saying that they're gonna have a better record, but like if you told me I had to bet money on the Giants or the Padres to make the
Hmm.
playoffs, I would probably bet money on the Padres just because they have a higher floor or a higher ceiling than the Giants do. The
Probably
Giants to
get
me
better
seem like,
odds on that too.
yeah, yeah. I just think they're a better bet. So, yeah, I think any of the teams in the AL or in the NL Central could be that last wild card. I'm going to give it to the Cardinals because I still believe in the star power of Goldschmidt and Arenado and enough of them
Gotcha.
their pitching and the rest of their pretty good
Gotcha.
offense that they're going
Gotcha.
to sneak in there.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go Phillies, Diamondbacks, Cubs for mine.
Yep.
All right. So we're gonna get
Yep.
into our awards predictions. So National League and American League MVPs, Cy Youngs, and rookies of the year coming up in just a moment. But first, a reminder this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. And with killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. So forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDON, that's LOCKDON, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem promo code LOCKEDON, that's LOCKDON, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen as we predict the 2024 MLB season. Before we get into our awards, we got to pick our ALCS, NLCS, and World Series winners. So, Colby, you go first.
We'll start in the National League. I will take, in a shocking upset, I will take the Atlanta Braves over the Dodgers in 7 games in the NLCS. Again, just watch Philly. Philly's kind of my dark horse, even though they were literally in the World Series 2 years ago, so it doesn't really qualify. But in the American League, I'm going to take Baltimore. And I'm going to take the Seattle Mariners to get to the ALCS. Yes. So now, can Seattle's pitching handle Baltimore's high-powered offense?
I mean, if
I'm
any
tempted.
rotation could do it, it
Yep.
should be the Mariners in theory.
I'm tempted to say yes, but I think the Mariners are still 1 year away. So I'm going to take Baltimore to beat the Seattle Mariners in 6 in the ALCS, and I will take the Atlanta Braves to win the World Series in 6 games against the Baltimore Orioles.
So we have the same exact World Series pick. So I'm
Oh,
taking
do
the
we?
Braves over the Orioles. Yeah.
Okay.
I have the Braves over the
God, this is so
Dodgers.
lame.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're so in line with one another. I think part of this is a byproduct though of how little teams got better this offseason.
Mhm.
It was only like a select few teams that actually did a bulk of the work in free agency this year. Right?
Mhm. I
It's like
mean,
it's the Giants, it's the Diamondbacks, it's the Dodgers, it's the Mariners made a lot of trades.
Mar- trade market, yeah.
Yeah. Like, but a lot of teams just stood pat. They're basically the same exact team that they were 5, 6
Right.
months ago.
Right, and they're banking on, the players they have getting better, which we can't predict. Like,
Right.
we as people watching from a distance, we can't predict. So, yeah, does it make sense that we're gravitating towards teams that were already good last year and the teams that were pretty good last year and did improve? Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So Braves over Orioles for me. The CS, I'm gonna go Orioles over Astros. I do think the Mariners
Turncoat.
do win their wild card series. They do make it to the ALDS again, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I know I'm not a man of the people, unlike a certain someone here. And then NLCS, yeah, Braves over Dodgers. I like you could easily see the Dodgers winning the World Series, right?
Sure.
Easily with that
But
roster. But I don't know. I kind of feel like this is like, year one of like LeBron, D Wade, Chris
yeah,
Bosh
you
together, where it's
build
like,
this hype train and
yeah.
then it just, doesn't
Like
work out.
I think that core is definitely going to win a championship or two together. I
Sure.
just don't know if it'll be this year.
Yeah.
All
Atlanta's
right.
really good.
They're really good. They're really good. And they probably have the second best rotation behind the Mariners right now.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's
All
up
right.
there.
So awards.
Mhm.
MVPs. Actually, let's do rookie of the year first. Who's
Okay.
your rookie of the year in the AL and NL?
Cade Marlowe in the AL.
Of course, naturally.
I'll take Jackson Holiday over Wyatt Langford in the
Ooh,
AL.
okay.
Uh, burn Baltimore for not putting him on the opening day roster, so they don't
Yeah,
get that extra pick.
yeah.
But he still gets a full year of service time. Ha 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 ha. That's what you get, Baltimore. And then in the NL, it's Yamamoto.
Yep. I'm gonna go
I mean,
Yamamoto as well. I am gonna go Langford over Holiday,
mhm.
just because I don't know when Holiday is going to get called up. I would assume that it's gonna be in May.
I'm going to assume around April 15th.
Yeah, yeah.
Just a random a couple
Yeah,
weeks into the season. That's
yeah,
when the
yeah.
defense will be ready.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So mid-April or like early May by the earliest,
The
or
silly
by the
thing about
latest,
that
rather.
is that if he finishes top 3,
Mhm.
he gets the full year of service time.
Yep.
So why not just have him start the year
I
on the
know.
opening day roster so you can
I know.
actually get the pick?
Yeah, I know. It's
But
silly. It's stupid. But yeah, I think Langford is going to have a lot of protection in that lineup. That dude can really hit, which is annoying because it's like, here come the Rangers yet again with another really good hitter.
yep. Is Evan
On top of,
Carter
yeah, I think Kevin
rookie
Carter,
eligible?
yeah, I think he qualifies too.
I mean, then he's
Uh,
going to be right there as well.
yeah. So yeah, there's quite a few good rookies coming out in both leagues this year. But
Mhm.
yeah, I'll go Langford. I know that's the safest pick, and obviously Yamamoto's the safest pick as well,
Oh
even
yeah,
though that his first start did not go particularly well, but I think he'll get it together.
one
But
inning.
I
He's going
keep an
pretty
eye
quick.
on Jackson Chourio though. I actually really
Yeah,
like Jackson Chourio.
I like him long term. I don't know if he's going to thrive this year.
Hmm. All right, Cy Youngs.
In
Logan
the
Gilbert.
national, huh?
Logan Gilbert.
Perhaps. I know
Okay.
you're taking George Kirby.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
National League. Last year I took Zach Gallen, and I
Yep.
like to have kind of like a surprise
I
pick.
almost did. I almost did this time around.
Yeah. So I know you're going Kirby. I have a different pick for the AL, but that's only because you pick Kirby, and I think we should differ on some things.
Right. Sure.
Um, so the National League, I'm gonna double down. I'm going Zach Gallen.
Okay. I like it.
I'll take Zach Gallen. And in the American League, I'm gonna take Tariq Skubal.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. I know there's
The
quite a few people
AL
out
is
there that are taking
wide
scuba.
open
Yeah, it is wide open.
with Cole out.
Mhm.
So Gossman is in play here. Castillo,
Awesome.
Kirby, Gilbert, they're all in play
Burns.
here. Yep, Burns certainly in play there. But I'm gonna take Skubal.
Okay.
So
I
I get
like it.
Skubal and Gallen.
All right. Yeah. Pablo Lopez would be a great
Yep.
pick there as well.
hmm
Um,
Dark
yeah,
dark
so
horse, Bailey over.
yeah, elite extension guy. What was it?
By the way,
99th percentile?
yeah, something like that. Side note,
Mhm.
Logan Gilbert also 99th percentile. Side
Right.
note, yesterday I was like, "Oh, Phil Bickford got released. I think the Mariners should probably look at that guy." And I looked at his Statcast page. Guess what? Phil
Of
Bickford's really
course.
good at
Of course.
like
Of course.
89th percentile in extension. I was like, "Oh well,"
Okay, it's not that extreme, but still.
but
Yeah.
still, I mean, like
Still. Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
getting weird. But
Yeah. It's
whatever.
yeah.
I don't know what it is. I'm just guessing,
It's
and
just like subconsciously, like you
I
see these guys
guess
pitch and it's just they're all high extension guys.
yeah, like Gilbert's extension is like 7'6", and Bickford's is like 6.8 or something, and I'm still
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, that's you could tell the difference between
Right. Right.
Bickford's extension and Luis Castillo's extension, which you can't, but
Mm.
for some reason my brain
See,
just clicks there.
so yeah, I'm taking George Kirby. Do I even need
No,
to explain? I'm doubling down, after last year. I'm just,
not
I'm
wrong, just a year too early.
yeah, I was a year too early. So
We both were.
uh and I like to get weird with it with my Cy Young picks and kind of think outside the box. I'm gonna go Jesus Luzardo
I
i-
like it. I
in the
almost went
National League.
Luzardo too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I feel like we have really good track records with picking like the dark horse guys who go in.
We both picked Alcantara a couple of years ago.
Yeah, when he
And that
won
was like
it,
kind
and
of
then
outside the box that year.
yeah, at the time, yeah, and
Yeah.
then you had McClanahan, and he was
Yep.
like a front runner for a while.
Mhm.
I can't remember who I picked. I had Gallen last year, and he was a front runner for quite a while. So
Yeah.
we're pretty good at the Cy Young picks. Everything else, Cy Young picks, pretty decent track record. So
So MVP is really interesting, especially in the NL, because like,
yeah,
can Otani do it just as a DH? I don't think so.
he just did. Well, I mean, I guess he didn't. He pitched, but like
He pitched for a while,
I'm gonna say no, just because
yeah,
the field is so deep in the National League.
right? Because he's competing with some of his teammates like Mookie and
Yeah.
Freddie Freeman. There's all
Yep.
those guys on the Braves, including the
Acuna, Matt
defending
Olson.
MVP. Yeah,
Yeah. I'm
you're gonna
gonna
go with Jared Kelnick, aren't you?
no. Can I give you a dark horse here too though?
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Michael Harris Jr.
Ooh, I like it. He was
Uh
really good in the second half.
yep. I'll go Mookie Betts this year. I think he wins it
Okay.
this year. Acuna won it last year. I'll go Mookie Betts, especially since again he selflessly moved off of second base to play shortstop, and
Mm,
he's going to be good at shortstop, even though he's never
of
played there
course,
before. Now he's like 34 years old
it's
because
just what
Mookie
Mookie
Betts is a
does.
freak.
Yep.
He is the inverse of what is supposed to
The
happen. He
only
started
thing
in the
he's not
corner.
good at is the home run derby.
Yeah, and didn't he still hit 39 home runs last year? So he's good at hitting home runs,
Yeah,
just
just not
not
the derby.
in a derby setting. Mookie Betts might be the most underrated player in baseball history because his entire career has been overshadowed by Mike Trout,
Certainly
Shohei
underrated by the Red
Ohtani.
Sox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
Yep.
So I'll go Mookie Betts, and then I'm taking Julio. Why wouldn't I?
Okay. I like it. Um, I'm gonna go Juan Soto. I'm gonna be basic with it. I'm gonna go Juan
Oh,
Soto in the American League.
lame.
He's gonna walk a lot. He's like
Yeah,
arguably the best pure hitter in all of baseball. Right?
it's him or Jordan, I think.
Yeah. He's gonna hit a ton of bombs. He's gonna walk a ton. We know what the deal
hmm
is with Soto, and now he's gonna be under the biggest spotlight in the game of
Yeah,
baseball, right? So, um, even if he has like a slightly worse year than Julio, I'm sure he would win it. So again, it
sure.
goes back to the conversation we've had about Julio, that Julio is probably going to have to do something really special that like the national media just cannot ignore, no matter how
40
hard they
40.
try. Yeah,
Win the
40
division.
40. Yeah, win the division, all that. So, and obviously have a couple of Heisman moments as well. Like we've talked about some big walk offs or some big robberies or what have you. National League, I'm going to go with the local kid. I'm going to go with Corbin Carroll.
Like it.
Yeah. He's going to steal a bunch of bags, going to hit a
Mhm.
lot of home runs, going to make a lot of things happen. Like, Corbin Carroll's a really fun player. I think he actually does it this year. Wins MVP.
Diamondbacks are kind of a name brand team now too.
Yeah. All right. That is going to do it for our show. But before we get out of here, once again, a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Ty Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.